We're into the third episode of family. What do we have to do if we are to be able to make a decision to try to save the marriage relationship? There are a number of things you're going to have to consider. Number one, you will need to acknowledge that you can't solve the problem yourself. That's not easy, but it's the truth. Our human mind makes problems. The essence of the problem is that feeling that God doesn't exist, that we're floating through a universe by ourselves, and we're doing everything and anything to be able to hold on to avoiding that feeling of aloneness. The human mind does not know how to solve it. In fact, it'll make you run from it. Better to believe that the problem is the other person and get a divorce than see the problem is yourself and need to look at yourself for the depressed feelings that are there and the negative feelings that you've got about yourself. Better to blame somebody else than yourself. That's the philosophy of the human mind. We all do it, so did I. In my marriage, I wanted always to look upon my wife as the source of the difficulty, not me. And it was only step by step that over the 50 years that movement could be made. Now, the first step is that you need to be able to recognize that there is a problem within you that you can't solve. Now maybe you say, oh, got to admit to that weakness. It is not a weakness. It is not a weakness. It is a strength. You're looking at a reality. You're looking at the fact that the human being has problems that it can no way solve. This is a strength because it's the truth. And people who don't look at this are looking away from the problem and running away from the problem and wanting others to meet them on those terms that the problem is you, not me. So, are you ready to be able to consider that you have a problem? Has it come to your awareness? Are you beginning to see things within inside yourself? Are you picking up elements of where you see that with your spouse or with your partner that you're not happy with the way you're reacting? Now, that's a natural part of your godly self, is to be able to pick up elements that don't agree with the godly being of being somebody who gives rather than takes. Can you call it on yourself without feeling a downgrading of yourself, but rather seeing it as an upgrading of yourself, that you have problems that you yourself can't handle? Now that's a tough place to be in itself, because you need darn quick to be able to come up with some kind of solution that you can hang on to. And that's where God steps in. If you're willing to be able to call it on yourself, you begin the process by which you have permitted God to come into your life. And if you say, oh boy, that's so complicated and it takes such depth to be able to do it, I'll use myself as an example. Before I was married, I was engaged to another person, a very, very lovely person, a very fine person. And she broke our engagement. We were engaged, and she broke it. Thank heavens she did. And spared herself the misery that I would have passed on to her with this relationship. And I'm glad for her. She didn't deserve it. Nobody deserves it, including me, but we weren't there yet. And she broke the relationship, and as part of it, she said to me, I'm going for help. And I don't think you have the ability or the nerve or whatever, I don't remember the word that she used, to go do it yourself. And so my thought was, oh really, is that so? And I only at that point became open to being looked for looking for help in the process. And fortunately, there were two people in my life that they themselves had entered into counseling in order to deal with their issues, and they mentioned it to me, and on that basis of my former fiance saying to me, "You ain't got it to go ahead and do this kind of a thing." You might think it was an unpleasant thing to say, but it happened to be the truth at that point. But when I heard these two people and they gave me the name of a practitioner that they went to, I went there. So you see, there is no great philosophical move that I made on myself, or to call it on myself, that I had the problem. There was a challenge to me, and that challenge was sufficient for me to feel the inadequacy, the insecurity that I was feeling, because the awareness of it got touched off by the remark that got made to me. Whatever moves you in order to look for help is a good move. It's a good move. Secondly, you're going to need support in this process. Unless you're going to live with that counselor 24 hours a day, you are going to need a person or people that will support you as you go through letting God gently, easily remove you from little bit by little bit of this dependency on somebody else than God. Because God has to get you to the point of being able to have God as the center of your existence. It's the only place where there is a complete loving nature. God has to enable you to recover the awareness of yourself that you are a God. Rather interesting, folks. In the footletter of Notes Divine, which maybe some of you already have gone into on my website, the footletter of Notes Divine is a healing document in which it has gone over some 15 years with me of God giving me instructions every day of a curriculum of healing that He has lined up. And in that, God states, there is but one truth. Ye are gods, and ye are loved. It's already there. It's already there. Inside of you, there is a God which has created you as gods and with a loving nature. And so God has to remove from you, gently, everything that contradicts that belief. You're a God. Sorry, you're experiencing yourself as a human being, but you're not. You're a godly being. That's how God made you. You're an eternal being. P.S. There is no death, there is no sickness, nothing, because that doesn't exist in God Himself, and God wouldn't slip you that either. And so, gently, God has to remove every false belief that interferes with the awareness that you are God's perfect, lovable child. Perfect, lovable child that is able to now live in a different relationship with another person, in which you now can give the other person the support for them to be able to move on themselves. And God will provide you people who will be your support group in order for you to go through this process. Because it's so helpful when others have gone through it and are available to you and can reassure you that this is strength that's going on with you. It is not weakness to be able to have that kind of support. It is absolutely and totally required that the problem must be seen as yours, and secondly, you need others to be able to solve it who are a support to you, along with this God who is gently bringing you along in the process, a very sure process, in order to be able to get a healing, and finally to help others get that healing as well.